So, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to extend a happy Pride Month to everybody in North America, the world, and of course the followers on our channel. And today we're going to take a very interesting look at, I consider, one of the most important gay-themed movies of the 1970s. It featured the director of The Exorcist, who helped lens it, and was based on Mark Crowley's great off-Broadway play of the same name. Of course, it's got to be The Boys in the Band. Now, this 1970 American drama is among the early American motion pictures to revolve around gay characters. It got a major release, is often cited as a milestone in the history of queer cinema, and thought to be the first mainstream American film used the swear word cunt. This ensemble cast, all of whom played the roles in the play's initial stage run in New York City, includes Kenneth Nelson, Peter White, Leonard Fry, Cliff Gorman, Frederick Coombs, Lawrence Luckinbill, Keith Prentice, Robert Letourneau, and Reuben Green. Model actress Maud Adams had a brief cameo in the movie, as does restaurateur Elaine Coffin. The film was set in the Upper East Side apartment in Manhattan in 1968, not the 1970 filming. Now, this one, Michael, a Roman Catholic, a recovering alcoholic, and sporadically employed writer, is preparing to host a birthday party for one of his friends, Harold, a very effeminate Jewish homosexual. Another friend, Donald, a self-described underachiever who has moved from the city, arrives and helps Michael prepare. Alan, Michael's presumably straight former college roommate, calls with an urgent need to see Michael. Michael reluctantly agrees and invites him to come over. Now, one by one, the guests arrive. Emery's a stereotypical flamboyant interior designer. Hank, a soon-to-be divorced school teacher, and Larry, a forester photographer, are a couple but struggling with monogamy. Bernard is an amiable black bookstore clerk. Alan calls again to inform Michael that he will not be coming, after all, and the party continues in a festive manner. However, Alan does arrive unexpectedly, throwing the gathering into turmoil. Now, eventually, Cowboy, a hustler and Emery's gift to Harold, arrives. As tensions mount, Alan assaults Emery. During the ensuing chaos, Harold finally makes his grand appearance, and in the middle of a scuffle, Michael impulsively begins drinking again. As the guests become more and more intoxicated, hidden resentments begin to surface, like with most house parties, doesn't matter if it's gay or straight. Now, what I find really strange about this, ladies and gentlemen, even though it was a standard play setting, $5.5 million budget, I don't know where the money went to, because the cinematography is good, but I don't know if it's just because of the wages or the staging or what was going on. Now, Michael, who is basically a self-hater as a Catholic, begins a telephone game with the objective for each guest to call to one person he truly believes he has loved. With each call, past scars and present anxieties are revealed. Bernard reluctantly attempts to call the son of his mother's employer, with whom he had a sexual encounter as a teenager. Emery calls a dentist on whom he had a crush while in high school. Both immediately regret the phone calls. Hank and Larry attempt to call each other via two phone lines in Michael's apartment in the hopes of patching up their rocky relationship. Now, Michael believes Alan is a closet homosexual, but his plan to out Alan with the game appears to backfire when Alan calls his wife, not his male college friend, whom Michael had presumed to be Alan's lover. As the party ends and the guests depart, Michael collapses and sobs into Donald's arms. When he pulls himself together, it appears his life will remain very much the same. Now, his friend or pseudo-friend, Harold, uses some biting language throughout the movie, but when it's directed against Michael, we don't know if they're former lovers or not, but there's some connection that's kind of implied. It's dangerous, Harold, at the party, because he's taken everybody apart, and he basically tells Michael, don't push it, in so many words. Now, Crowley and Dominic Dunn, of all people, set up the film version of the play with Cinema Center Films, owned by CBS. Crowley was paid $250,000 plus a percentage of the profits for the film rights, very high at the time. In addition to this, he received a fee for writing the script. Now, Crowley and Dunn originally wanted the play's director, Robert Moore, direct, but Gordon Stolberg, head of Cinema Center, was reluctant to entrust the job to someone who's never made a movie before. He decided on William Friedkin, who had just made the film of The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter, that impressed him. Now, Friedkin rehearsed for 2 weeks with the cast. He shot a scene that was offstage in the play where Hank and Larry kissed passionately. The actors who played him were reluctant to perform this on film, but eventually they did. Now, However, Friedkin cut the scene during editing, feeling it was over-sensationalistic. Nevertheless, he later admitted regarding that decision. The bar scene in the opening was filmed at Julius in Greenwich Village. Studio shots were at the Chelsea Studios in New York City. Now, according to commentary by Friedkin on the 2008 DVD release, Michael's apartment was inspired by the Upper East Side apartment, the real one, of actress Tammy Grimes. Grimes was a personal friend of Mark Crowley, and most of the patio scenes were filmed at Grimes' home. The actual apartment interior would not allow for filming, given its size and other technical factors, so a replica of the apartment was built on Chelsea Studios soundstage, and that is where the interior scenes were filmed. They worked quite good. Now, songs featured in the film, including Anything Goes, performed by Harper's Bazaar during the opening credits, Good Lovin' Ain't Easy to Come By Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, Funky Broadway by Wilson Pickett, Love Is Like a Heat Wave by Martin Vandellas, an instrumental version of Burt Bacharach's The Look of Love. And if you look closely, there's a Easter egg. There's a Burt Bacharach album cover within Michael's record thing. Now, the film, get this, has an 89 cents for approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes with 19 reviews with an average of 7.2. I give it 3 stars out of 4. I always go back to this movie because as a 6-year-old of all things, this was the first movie I remember watching, something called Midday Matinee on ATV in Canada. But there's no nudity in the movie, but the raw honesty of the different, not say versions, but if you're a straight person, you can say this. Not every gay person is the same. Some are flamboyant, some are closeted, some are butch, some are bottom, some are tops. And this one, everything is really carried out, including, the hustlers. Now, contemporary critical reaction was most part cautiously favorable. Variety wrote it drags, good word, but thought it had perverse interests. Time described it as a humane moving picture, and the LA Times praised it as unquestionably a milestone, but refused to run its ads. Among the major critics, Pauline Kael, who disliked Friedkin, was alone in finding absolutely nothing redeeming about it, just like how I think about her, one of the worst reviewers of all time. Now, Vincent Canby of the New York Times observed, except for inevitable monotony that comes from the use of so many close-ups in a confined space, Friedkin's direction is clean and direct, and under the circumstances, effective. All of the performances are good, and that of Leonard Fry as Harold is much better than good. He should have got an Oscar nomination for this. He's excellent without disturbing the ensemble. Crowley has a good minor talent for comedy of insult and for creating enough interest by way of small character revelations to maintain minimum suspense. There's something basically unpleasant, however, about a play that seems to have been created in inspiration of love-hate and finally does nothing more than exploit it, I assume, sincerely conceived stereotypes. Now, in a San Francisco Chronicle review of the revival of film in 1999, Edward Guthman recalled, by the time Boys was released in 1970, it already earned among gays the stain of Uncle Tomism. He called it a genuine period piece, but one that still has the power to sting. In one sense, it aged surprisingly little. The language and physical gestures of Camp are largely the same, but the attitudes of his characters and their self-lacerated vision of themselves, it belongs to another time, and that's a good thing. Bill Weber from Slant wrote in 2015, the partygoers are caught in the tragedy of the pre-liberation closet, a more crippling and unforgiving one than the closets that remain. Now, the film was perceived in different ways throughout the gay community. There were those who agreed with most critics and believed The Boys was making great strides, while others thought it portrayed a group of gay men wallowing in self-pity. Like straight people don't do that. There was even those who felt discouraged by some of the honesty in the production. One spectator wrote in 2018, I was horrified by the depiction of the life that might befall me. I have very strong feelings about that play. It's done a lot of harm to gay people. Like I said, eye to beholder. While not as acclaimed or commercially successful as Friedkin's subsequent films, he considers this film to be one of his favorites. He remarked in an interview on the 2008 DVD for the movie, it's one of the few films I've made that I can still watch. Now, Kenneth Nelson was nominated for the Golden Globe Awards for New Star of the Year actor, and the Producers Guild of America Laurel Awards honored Cliff Gorman and Leonard Fry as stars of Tomorrow. Now, released by MGM in a video cassette in October 1980, it was re-released on CBS Fox Video and also on Laserdisc. Now, the DVD was overseen by Friedkin, was released by Paramount on November 11th, 2008. Now, the 2008 release was a very important milestone, because not too often such a VHS title, very popular VHS back in the day, would get them more than one release. Now, the DVD again includes the additional materials, including audio commentary, interviews with Friedkin, playwright, screenwriter Crowley, producer Dominic Dunn, writer Tony Kushner, and two of the surviving cast members, Peter White and Lawrence Luckinbill, and a retrospective look at both the off-Broadway 68 play and 70 film. Released on Blu-ray in June of 2015, the 2011 documentary Making the Boys explores the production of the play and film and the context of the era. Now, Ryan Murphy produced a new film version of The Boys in the Band for Netflix in 2020. Joe Mantello, director of the play's 2008 Broadway revival, served as the director of the new film version, which featured the entire Broadway revival cast, including Jim Parsons as Michael, Zachary Quinto as Harold, Matt Bomer as Donald, and Charlie Carver as Cowboy. The film was released by Netflix on September 30th, 2020. Now, to my knowledge, I don't think all the cast from 1970s movie was gay. I could be wrong here, because Lawrence Luckinbill, from his participation in a heterosexual marriage all these years, but I don't think all the cast was gay. I could be wrong here, but I know there's only a few survivors. Now, the parody movie Boys in the Sand came after that, which was a gay porn feature film released in 1971. But for me, it's important in my appreciation of art cinema. I don't really consider this an art movie. I consider it just like Sleuth, or these movies that are made into plays. It's a very, very interesting movie. You don't have to be a straight person or even an out or closeted gay person to see the humanity of the people involved. Because not all your friends are going to be right on to your other friends. And the fact is, in my memory, I don't remember a gay bar in the early scenes shown as casually as it was in the movie. It was almost like a hetero bar, people watching a hockey game or whatever. But it humanized a certain group of gay people in that period of time, the late 60s. A lot of countries, homosexuality was illegal. We're still coming out the the fruit machine era in Canada. Blackmailing and the riots and and what they call the Gay Liberation Front. What was happening in San Francisco. But for me, it's a raw look at cinema in the late 60s, early 70s. Friedkin's oeuvre, if you're a fan of Friedkin, but really it's there's layers upon layers upon layers in this movie, and it could never. Now there were some things people were talking they're going to make this into a TV series. Now I'm still surprised you never do it in a TV series, because I like to learn like the preamble of how they became friends. That's a big thing. But like, for example, my best friends in this world are my former high school classmates and my baseball teammates from the early 1980s. And just like that, they probably met on Fire Island, and maybe some slept with each other, while others were just basically supportive. But there's a bond here amongst those people. And the black person is not a token black. He's a fully formed character. He's not just there because he's black. But the Harold character, holy frig, Caddy, it stands out. And it's a battle between someone who does things on credit while someone spends too much time, like on makeup and, presenting himself well. And like I said, I'm a lapsed Catholic, so I see the Catholic guilt, because he's gay, but he also believes in God, and that's the big denouement at the end. Well, if there is a God, like what's going to happen to me, because I believe in him, but maybe he doesn't believe in me. So Boys in the Band, like I said, for me, 3 stars out of 4. And again, happy Pride Month. I want to talk about this movie, and I hope you take it the right way. Not every gay person or lesbian person or LGBTQ plus knows about this movie. And maybe if you hear about my podcast from a straight movie reviewer telling you watch probably one of the most important gay movies, non-sexual gay movies of the 1970s. It's a good, you'll be talking about this movie for years, and you'll be telling your friends. It's a water cooler movie. So that's the latest in our Screenshots podcast. If you like what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.